They spelled my name wrong.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Saturday, the 13th of May, 2023. This is our second week in a row doing this, which feels excessive. But then we won't meet up next week, and I'll try again for, I think it's the 27th is the one after this one. So, and I do this because it's fun, and I think it's nice for you all to actually see each other's faces, get to know some people. Definitely not a requirement in SNHU, so an optional time to be here, but I hope you all have fun. And these things are a little bit challenging. If you've never done it before, we have some new people today. You know, asking you to write something in 6 minutes is just evil, but it's awesome. And as you do it more and more, you'll find that it's a great way to kickstart your writing for long writing, short writing, whatever you want to do. One of the things I want to point out, this is my first time teaching the English 532 class. And this class, the writing is getting shorter and shorter in the little assignments. So this week, you're going to be writing, I think it's 250 words. Yeah, in 250 words or less, step into the role of set designer and invent a character and his or her props or living and or a working space seen from the point of view of a narrator who does not live with your character. So you can do anything. You could be like a first person, you can be a third person, you can be omniscient. But you could have a detective walking into an apartment and assessing things. You could have a first date person whose date forgot the keys and they went back, and the person they're going out with, is looking for the keys and they're observing where the person lives or whatever. I mean, there's all kinds of ways that you can get into this story. It sounds really fun. And I don't know about the rest of you, but when I write fiction, I tend to write about the narrator. Like I'll be in first person quite a bit with my young adult fiction, and I'm having her do all this observation, but not so much about other people. It's about her own room. So I'm really excited to see how this assignment's going to turn out, because I think it's a great exercise to have your narrator paying attention to other people. Something I forget all the time.
I have a question on it.
Sure.
So you know how last week we were talking about the importance of the title for really short pieces? So could you have the title be a quote?
Yeah.
And like feed right into the first line of your story?
Absolutely. And I love that you asked that
cool.
question, because one of my prompts today is about the way titles can do that. So that was I was like, I queued you up and people would think that I did, but I didn't. You didn't even know. So awesome. Yeah. So especially in super short stories, I know I pointed you all to the 100wordstory.org site. They'll have titles that, because they don't count towards 100 words, sometimes people will write almost a sentence for a title because it gives them extra words to their story, right? So yeah, you can do it that way. So again, just as a reminder, whatever your narrator's doing, one of the great ways, and Roselle has jumped up and down on this, so I can do it too. One of the great ways to do this description is to bring in sensory detail as well. So don't just tell me what's in the room. What is that narrator smelling, feeling, touching, tasting? I missed one. Hearing. So, here's Shelby. Oh, great. So that's, I think actually Shelby's in 532, but I won't say it again. She can watch the recording, right? It's right here at the beginning. And for 529 in module 5, you are doing the journal that's having you talk about your goals as a fiction writer and how you can apply elements of fiction to prompts. And so it asks you what subgenres of fiction you're most interested in writing and what elements of fiction you value the most. In other words, what do you want your short stories or novels to accomplish? And this one gets a little wonky because I am the one instructor you're going to have at SNHU that's going to ask you to go out and consistently be, if you're not doing creative writing, then you're probably going to be looking for an expert to back up your ideas. So if you're like, I love writing horror, do something like go define horror, with an outside expert, so that you be sure that when you tell your reader that you love to write horror, we get common ground on what horror means. Or if you want to say that your favorite element of fiction you want to work on is figurative, I've clicked on Shelby 4 times. There's 4 Shelbys trying to get in. If if you say your favorite element of fiction is something like figurative language, I know what I think figurative language means, but is it the same thing you think it means? And so go out there and, I mean, charters, I'm not asking you to go all, you know, brick and mortar top 10 MA program research on me. I just want you to be using good terms. I want you to be sure that if you were to reach out to somebody else and say, metaphor is my favorite thing. Well, what do you mean by metaphor? Because I had one creative writing teacher who insisted that simile is metaphor, which it is. It's a subset of metaphor, but maybe you meant simile and I didn't even know it because I was thinking of metaphor only in the translation of something is something else, right? So I realize that I jump up and down on experts, but the reason I do is reading around to find those resources as part of what will make you better as a creative writer. You will find out what the creative writing world is saying about creative writing, and it helps you be a better writer, I promise. Do y'all have any questions on that? Okay, great. And one of the things, let's see, one more thing, I think it's just remember that direct quotes are a great way to like point to either a peer's writing or point to a place in those experts' writing. Like you can say metaphor is according to charters or whatever. And when you do that, please try to just take the very nugget of the quote. Block quotes really don't have a place in a 3-paragraph, journal. Because I want to know what you were thinking. I really do read what you write, and there are 40 of you, so that means that I'm reading 160 items when I grade for 2 assignments per class. I care about what you think. I take the time to read this stuff. So please don't give me 9 lines of an expert. Give me the 1 or 2 lines that really get to the core of what you're. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Elisa, you have a question?
I do. When I'm paraphrasing someone, do I still do an in-text cite?
Yes.
Because I thought in-text cite was just for the direct quote. So you're saying
No.
even paraphrasing, I just, okay. And do I
Yeah,
still?
you're just indicating that the idea, the content is shared with somebody else. It's your words, but it's at the core, it's something you got somewhere else.
And do I still put a page number and everything else?
Yep.
Thank
It's
you.
identical to a quote. And that way, if somebody's like, this is an interesting concept, I want to see the way the charter said it, they can go to the page number that you cited really easily.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any more questions? Okay, so we're going to do the format again where inspirational thing to read, and then we will write for 6 minutes on a prompt I give you. And I'm really excited about the stuff I have for you to read today. I'm starting out with a poem. I do a lot of poems because they're short. But I've also been spending a lot of time digging through flash fiction because I want to have a deep well of things to inspire you by. So this poem called Foundation by Denton Loving, his book just came out last month. I don't know if you can see this. It's called Tamp. And he's somebody who several years before me was at the Bennington Writing Seminars, but I particularly love his work because it's set at Appalachia. Or in the Appalachian Mountains. I think he's Appalachia up where he is. No, he's in Georgia. Anyway, Appalachian. And so it's really down home writing. And I'm putting in the chat right now the poem that we're going to look at right now. And all of them are like this. There's a poem in here about naming cows, and it's called Remembered by Name. And it's all this stuff that's happening with this cows he remembers by name, but it's really a story of how he was raised and what it was like to be on the farm, and all of it's in poetry form. It's incredible. So if you're ever inclined, I don't recommend buying poetry collections that often. Sarah Freely's Sad Math is the best poetry collection I've ever read. So I recommend it. I recommend Tamp, and I love Meg Progress's, I don't have it right here, but she wrote this incredible, I think it's called Counting Crows. it's all like a numbery thing, and it's in. So I don't recommend a lot of poetry, but I recommend all that. Okay. Does anybody want to read this poem? Or I will read if you're not comfortable. Okay, I'm going to read because I don't want us to go long. Did somebody say they would?
I would.
Oh, okay, thank you, Patricia.
I will.
Yeah.
Foundation by Denton Loving. Unable to stand in our hillside orchard, too weak to swing a mattock or to wrestle with dirt, my dad wants to plant peach trees. For him, I tear the earth open. Rocks bleed out from the poor mountain soil, and I unwrap swaddled peach roots. Before I scrape the dirt back and tamp it down, I return the largest rock under the young roots, a surrogate for what I fear. I bury it back. Imagine the roots encircling the rock, enclosing it, building from its foundation, like the hard stone buried in the sweetest fruit.
Gosh, I love this poem. And the more I read it, the more I feel like I understand it. So I know this is your first time seeing it, but let's talk a little bit about what's happening here. What would you say if there was a story plot happening in this poem? What would you say is happening?
Getting ready to bury his dad.
Well, no, that's the meaning. I'm very nicely done.
Right.
But literally what happens in the poem first, and then we can get to getting ready to bury his dad.
He's clearing out a peach, a plot of land, an area, cleaning out the dirt behind a peach tree.
Yeah, I mean, he's planting a peach tree, right?
Planting a peach tree.
And kind of using violent imagery.
Yeah, swing a mattock, wrestle, right? Tear the earth open. Where does it get less violent?
Before
I scrape the, yeah.
Do you think it's before I scrape the dirt back and tamp it down?
Well, it could be I unwrap the swaddled peach roots.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask
Oh,
you
yeah.
about that language, because what does that sound like?
Like
A
a baby.
child.
Yeah, a baby, a child. Okay, so then, and then the word surrogate, what does that mean?
To take the
That
place.
threw
of-
me.
To take the place of, right? So he takes the largest rock and he puts it under the young roots, and he says it's a surrogate for what I fear. And honestly, I read this poem 3 times before I was like, oh, I think this is what he means. Elise is going to tell us, because I know she, go ahead, Elisa.
Saving the spot for the coffin or the dad's body.
Yeah, or the rock can be a surrogate for the dad's body. Like right
Yeah.
now, the dad's alive and is directing him planting peach trees, but he knows it's not that far away before he'll be
So I thought there was
planting.
something nice there that he wanted to like save the spot so that when the dad died, he could bury him under the peach tree and there was already a hole there. So he didn't like have to excavate it all up again, because it's like,
I think it's a little complicated. Sarah said that surrogate is a replacement, right? Is that what
Yeah.
you said, Sarah? Yeah.
Take the
And
place
so,
of.
yeah. So for example, if you're going to, what's a surrogate mother?
Someone who bears the child for someone else.
Right. And so in that case, the surrogate is the thing. So I think it's carrying it a little far to say that he's going to come back and pull this rock out and slide a coffin in there. I mean, I think that's a little literal, especially because it's a poem. Where in poetry, we were supposed to expect a metaphor before we expect a literal. If that
Okay.
makes sense. But then if the rock is like, is it surrogate for the dad? What happens then in the final stanza? Because I think he does kind of a double duty with both bearing and fruit, and we got to think about the tree, right? So what are some I don't know, wild claims you could make could be going on here metaphorically?
When he says like hard stone buried in the sweetest fruit. It almost sounds like his dad's a difficult or rough person or something like that. And the earth is much softer.
And I can vouch for the dad being difficult because I've read the whole book. So
Oh,
you
okay.
know, that is a theme that is happening here, but not in an unloving way. It's in
Right.
an understanding, like, this life is hard and my dad was hard way, right?
Mhm.
Because they were farmers in Appalachia. My understanding is the southern half says Latia and the northern half says Lachia, and I can't get it right. to save my life.
It's okay. I'm from this area and we don't agree on that either.
So Randall, you should definitely look up Denton then. Maybe you live near him.
Oh yeah, this is very this story is very reminiscent of my life because I grew up on a farm with a sometimes difficult father too. And
my gosh.
part of my takeaway from this is that, you know, he's doing work that he doesn't want to do, but he's also realizing that the foundation of that work is his father, because if he's just planting this tree, it's going to be, you know, 4 or 5 years before it bears fruit. So what the dad's doing is not even for the dad, it's for the son. So to me, that's part of the foundation thing too, is, you know, I realized as I got older that a lot of the hard work that my dad put me through that made me angry also turned me into who I am. And I'm thankful for it now. So that's kind of my takeaway from this.
Feel like you would love this collection, Randall. 'Cause you just if you were going to summarize this poetry collection, this is what it is, and beautifully done. And the thing is that Denton is not a farmer. He's a writer and a poet, and he also, it's worth just going and visiting all of his stuff. He helps co-edit a literary journal, and he offers in a trailer on the property, he offers a writing retreat that you can apply for. So if anybody needs some time to get away and write, that's a place you can do it. So but that's more than I meant to do. So fantastic. The only other thing I would add is, could you, and I mean, obviously I'm reading it this way, I wouldn't be asking you the question, but you can disagree with me because not everybody reads the same way. We bring our contingent reality to what we read. I think that Denton's talking a little bit also about how he is a peach tree, right? He is the product of his father's seed and growth. And so then if he's got the stone, it's like the hard stone buried in the sweetest fruit, which could be the earth, as Gretchen was suggesting, but also, I mean, Denton is some pretty dang sweet fruit himself. He's a wonderful guy. And he's different than his father and has a very soft heart, part of what makes him a great poet. But it's something to be thinking through, because this metaphor, I mean, look at how many different layers of metaphor are happening so that we can go back to the same line. And in 1 second, it was literal. And the next second, he's burying his dad. And the next second, it's talking about the fruit that somebody bears as a father. All that is happening over and over again in the same lines. I mean, I think that's the characteristic of the very finest writing we can do, is when we can have layers of meaning happen with the same words. It's hard. Okay. So here is the prompt I'm going to offer you. I'm going to give you a chance to read it, and I'll read it aloud. I dug around till I finally found out. And what's really funny is somebody put this quote up and they were just like, I don't know where this comes from. And they went through way down in the comment section, this guy popped up and he's like, my grandfather. And I mean, it was legitimate. I dug and dug and dug, and it was legitimate. So this Canadian farmer, Nelson Henderson, said this quote I know you recognize. The true meaning of life is to plant trees under whose shade you do not expect to sit. And so I want you to think about the way that nature takes on these huge metaphorical meanings for us. And I mean, you can play with what your notion of nature is. I mean, this poor dying cactus next to me could be my notion of nature, not the beautiful, you know, Pacific Central Northwest, that inland Northwest that I live in. So I want you to try to pick a specific instance where nature could take on the lightness and or burden of your hopes and fears. This can be literal, this can be metaphorical, and write about it. And this seems like a lot. Remember, all we're trying to do in these 6 minutes is write. So whatever happens, even if it's not even closely related to the prompt, writing is the goal. So if you feel like the prompt is hard, let yourself write. And as a reminder, to everybody but Gretchen, and as a thing to say to Gretchen, if you find that you're not able to write, like if your brain's like, this is too much, do something really repetitive as you start. Be like, I don't know what to write. I don't know what to write. And if you're writing by hand, it does engage both hemispheres of your brain, but you can do it however you want. But just, I don't know what to write. I don't know what to, and your brain will get irritated by about number 3 and usually give you something else to write. So, but if any writing happens, that is a goal met today. And again, you don't have to share. You can be as personal as you want and just say you want to pass this time. You feel ready? On your Lisa never hits. On your marks, get set, write. We have about a minute left. Hey, everybody, try to wrap things up and join us back up here. How'd it go for everybody? Did writing happen? Good.
Yep.
All right. Was anybody surprised by what you got?
Yes.
Yes.
Fantastic. That makes me want to hear what you got.
Didn't do anything even remotely like I thought I would.
Cool. That's the best. All right. Who would like to share first?
I can.
Okay.
All right. The field had a gentle breeze rolling over the golden stalks. Above the golden sea, one light lit the sky, hovering over but not setting the sea on fire. Soon enough, one bug became two. The sole source of light doubled. 3. Another joined, making a line. 4. The line grew bigger, the light spreading. 5. My heart fluttered. 6. How could something so small grow? 7. The bugs were in a line stretching further and further. 8. More in the distance saw the signal. 9. Tears streamed like an open irrigation ditch. 10. They weren't alone. In the distance, more were coming, lighting up the golden sea to make it a golden sky.
Oh, so a list.
Oh my God.
Yes. Oh, I did not think I was going to do a list, and then it happened.
Wow.
Sarah,
And
what
even
would you say?
numbering the list, which could be obnoxious, but it is not whatsoever. It's like exactly what it's supposed to be. That's amazing.
At first, I thought you said that they were going over a C, SEA, not seed. And
It was SEA.
Uh-huh.
okay, so then I forget what I was going to say then, because I was going to say how in the end, I thought you said seed, SEED. And I thought, oh my God, that's amazing how you tried the C and the seed together, but never mind.
But you could put a seed at the end and play with it.
Yeah.
That's what you're going to do for the next one.
So I had an alien feel about it. Was I supposed to?
Maybe. I was thinking like fireflies.
Yeah, in my brain, they were in a straight line.
Mm-hmm.
So I was actually thinking, of course, I've just reread Charlie and the Great Glass Elevator, that it was the vermicious knids. Because in the Great Glass Elevator, they all get together like that and perform a hook to try and wrap around the elevator and kidnap Charlie and everybody out to space. And it made
That's
me
contingent reality right there. Anybody else have thoughts for Suzanne?
I was wondering what kind of bug it was. So now that I know it's fireflies, I want to hear it again.
Mm,
Are you in the chat or
Slack.
the
The
Slack?
Slack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can type up and send it to you later if you are.
Okay.
Yeah, you're in the Slack, aren't you, Patricia?
Yes, I am.
Any other thoughts?
No, I know.
Contingent realities and fireflies. That's where my mind went to because I saw the first fireflies of the year last night. So
Did you really?
yeah.
We don't have them up here.
You don't have fireflies?
Mm-mm.
Huh.
But we just booked to go the middle of 2024. I mean my husband, and I'm just joining him. Is there some full eclipse, the last full eclipse for like 40 years in Texas, Dallas, Texas next year in April? Things that aren't frequent.
So the fantastical element that surprised me, Suzanne, was that I felt like they were in a straight line. And in my experience of fireflies, they're erratic and they don't light up at the same time. So I loved that there's something more going on. And I'd have to read it again to really get to it. But I love when I read something and go, oh no, I have to read that again. So good start.
Thank you.
Nice way to start. Who wants to go next?
I can go next. You go, Sarah.
Huh?
Yeah.
Okay. Sometimes trickling, sometimes cascading, Minnehaha Falls releases the power of a smooth river up high, down to the frothy surface below. Wet leaves, silky mud fills my senses, warm, moldy, soft, and slick. My pastoral resident advisor kneels in the calm water just past the froth of the falls. My roommate, she drips the smudge of a cross on my roommate's forehead and tips her back as she dies and gets raised back up in her faith. The river keeps moving, carrying silt, leaves, tadpoles, as my roommate's best friend wades into the waterfalls named for laughter.
You know, you could put a better game face on that because that was really great, but you end with like, what just happened there?
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that especially the Ha Falls, which, juxtaposition with like the seriousness of the moment, but also the way when you talk about it's the word floatsome, is that the word, with in the water, the gunky stuff in the water, that you included the tadpoles, which are rebirth. I thought that was like in the middle of all the dirt, there's rebirth, and in the middle of her being baptized, there's the rebirth. But yet it's all happening at the Ha Falls. So to be completely sacrilegious, I thought that was a great juxtaposition.
Thank you.
interesting.
What else do you have to say? You know, I don't want to talk over the top of you, but I have ideas.
You had great descriptors in that piece that really gave the impression of, you could really put yourself in the scene and see what was going on. Particularly like the ones that stuck out to me were like talking about the silt in the water and the I think you said moldy, slick feel of like the rocks. All of that, really put you in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else? Well, I want to say that here I was saying the best kind of writing has all kinds of readings possible over and over again on the same words. And basically, we have potentially the beauty of rebirth and a baptism. We have the potential of sins being washed away. We have tadpoles who could be like the new life, but we're having it all happening under Laughing Falls. So is there a faith happening here, or are we laughing at what is happening at the base of these falls? I mean, that's something that you can keep playing around with because it has the potential for a lot of meaning.
Yep.
Thank you.
So keep going. Keep revising. Okay, well, so Sarah went and Elisa wanted to go. So you want to go next, Elisa?
On Yom Kippur, and this is, by the way, like totally like I have no idea where this came from. On Yom Kippur, we go to a river and cast away our sins. I never bought into it, but it's similar to Jesus dying for your sins and saying 12 Hail Marys for absolution. We go to the mikveh on a monthly basis and cleanse ourselves by dipping 3 times and saying a blessing. The rules are strict. Shower first, remove your scabs and nail polish, spread your fingers, don't clench your eyelids, dunk 3 times, supervised, and bless. It's all BS, except that 10 years ago, when the well of grief overflowed into me, I went in and dunked. It was the first time since my wedding 20 years earlier, and I went at the behest of my aunt who believes, as I do not. And I dunked, and I dunked, and I dunked the 3rd time. And I came up, recited the blessing, and burst into gasping sobs. The mikveh lady watched me sob, lent me a towel, and hugged me as no one had before. It didn't change a thing, but let me clear myself out. I've not had the guts to repeat it.
Wow.
Beautiful.
Mhm. I'm
think
just
it's
stunned at
good.
all the different directions that people go with the prompt. I was way more literal.
And so far, we all have water and it was funny.
Yeah, you all have some little element of the beyond for sure.
One of the word choices that I like that you did, Alyssa, is dunk. Because that's
Yeah.
like a heavier word than like dip.
Yep.
And so just like that minor difference, it makes a big difference. So that's a
Mhm.
good choice.
And the
Mhm.
3 times, 3
Mhm.
times.
Yep.
I dunked and I dunked and I dunked. And then I dunked.
I liked
And
her speech pattern too.
I dunked and I dunked and I dunked the 3rd time. is what I
Yeah.
said.
Mhm.
Thank you.
That rhythm, I mean, I think that almost made the whole thing, especially because then the character, which, you know, we're pretty sure is you, but wouldn't have to be if this was published somewhere, right?
Yep.
Comes up crying and it doesn't change a thing, but it clears her out and it gives us like a tiny glimpse into what works about ritual for some people. And
Mhm.
even if you don't believe, there is something,
Mhm.
you know, there's a reason human beings are so committed to rituals and they don't, you know, it's different belief systems, different rituals, but something happens and we don't know what. It's the je ne sais quoi that keeps showing up in these pieces, right?
Yep. And my poor aunt thought it would like bring me back to the faith, and she was like, yeah, no, I'm not doing this again.
See, and the rest of that story, you know, and flash link things like this is not, I mean, interesting, but not helpful because that, what you encapsulated right there, that's the magic, right? Does
Mhm.
anybody have anything else they want to add to Lisa?
I
That was
thought
great.
yeah, it was very powerful.
Yeah.
Randall, I
like-
heard your voice, but I didn't hear what you said.
Who did you say?
You,
Okay, that's what I thought, but I couldn't hear you either, unfortunately.
sorry.
I just said I thought that was great. I think that's one of the best things that you've written in the workshops. It was very raw and emotional and open. I liked it.
Thank you.
Vulnerable.
Also, one more thing. So, like writing something that could be quoted as irreverent, it was kind of like you real towed the line, but didn't cross it. And I have a lot of respect for that because I know like when we're expected to be a certain way or do a certain thing and we do things to please other people or because we revere them. I think that keeping the tone the way you did was smart.
Thank you.
Yeah, Sarah, exactly. Much better put than what I said about we don't need the rest of the story. I agree with you, Sarah, that the story lets us not know for sure what happens to the character, and that's okay.
Mhm.
and respectful, right? What you're saying, Sarah. Yeah. Nice.
Thank you.
Cool.
Awesome. Well, I wonder with the remaining 3 people, how much magic and water and literalness we will have. Who
And
wants to go
religion.
next?
I can go next.
Okay. And then it looks like Gretchen probably has her hand up next after Randall. And Patricia, we're just putting you in last this time.
I'll
Just
take
like
it.
last time. Okay, Randall.
The trees in my grandfather's forest are strong, and they outlast my memories. I come back through the years to visit them again, certain of where each wooden sentinel will be along the riverbank. Yet the shape is always off from these days as a child. The trees seem smaller, the space between different, as if they're engaged in a slow dance to befuddle my senses. Still, they endure as the flickering synapses in my brain never could. I lounge in their shade, breathe deeply of the spring morning, and I remember. Grandfather dies. His wife snaps that she's sick of the upkeep, and the loggers come. My personal psalm, as I look on old friends, butchered and torn, blasted and filled by the passage of unthinking still. My synapses endure longer, after all. One day they will follow the wooden friends to whatever comes next. The memories in my head are strong, and they outlast the cool shade I once knew.
Wow.
Wow.
Jeez.
Powerful. Very powerful.
Have you
Especially
ever
because in the beginning, they outlast my memories. That was the line I wrote down immediately in the chat because I wanted to have it. But you take us somewhere else.
I feel like you could publish that just as it is, like,
I like the way it really showed that our memories, our spatial memories changed. Like, you know, you always think something's huge and you're a child, and then you go back and they're like, really? Get that post-it backyard, tiny little thing when I used to run around for hours. But it also made me think, so up here we have a lot of the logging, the tree logging. And we were driving through the peninsula, and it's just like truck after truck after truck of wood. And my heart broke, and I just said to my husband, I feel so bad touching a piece of paper now, because it's like mass murder of the trees. It's just, it was so painful. And I got the same feeling like from your story. That's just what it brought up, was like this feeling of like these poor trees, and they're being harvested for, you know, for parts, kind of thing.
Mhm.
Butchered.
Butchered.
Yep. Mhm.
I think it's very close. Like, I think you should consider a little bit of flash writing, Randall, because you do have a narrative arc here. And I think the only thing that I would push into even more is a bit of an understanding of that beginning, middle, and end. In the middle, it's not so clear it's the middle. Because Flash is so fast, my reading of it as you were going was that you were at the beginning, and then of course we go straight to the end, and a lot of, I mean, the middle is implied in a lot of Flash. And so I thought we were at the end and we're having this great nostalgia. And what I loved was then that twist. Because you open with the trees outlast my memories. And I was like, of course they do. And what a great concept. So many trees outlive us. And then they don't. That's an amazing twist. I agree with everybody that you should polish this up and get it there. But help us. Like, I would love to have a clue that in rereading makes me go, oh, we were in the middle, you know?
Mhm.
But that I wouldn't know for sure in the first reading. You might have it, right? As it. Anyway, play with it. And there's a ton of Flash places out there. You should be thinking, especially any that are focused on family nostalgia, memory, trees. There's one that does trees. If I can think of it, I'll, if it emerges in my world, I'll send it to you.
Oh, that's cool.
Anybody have anything more for Randall?
I just need you to change it, because it's just so calming that, you know, I just lose half of what you say.
Well, I think the other thing too is that though we might come from different geographical areas, it's very relatable to your own life regardless. I'm not from the South, but there's so many images in there that would resonate with our own lives that it speaks to all of us.
Nice. And the universal is what we're writing, right?
Hmm.
Everything we write should matter to anyone.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I like that the trees seem smaller as he got older.
Even
Because
though
when
they
you're
were
little,
getting bigger,
everything
right?
seems so big, right? He's getting bigger, but the trees look smaller before they butchered them.
Right.
Hmm.
And we know the trees are actually getting bigger than they were when he was a kid. That was something that ran
Right.
through my head, and I loved it. Because even
Yeah.
though they were growing, they would still seem smaller.
Yeah.
Yeah, good point, Patricia.
Almost like idealizing things in our childhood and then growing up and realizing that they're not like that. And then things go to shit and you just keep going.
And it was a metaphor, I think, as Sarah is saying, for kind of life just sort of implodes on us, like we read so many things where adults are saying to kids, you don't know, but they don't. They don't
Mhm.
know.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
You don't know what you don't know.
And life is tragic. I mean, I don't think any of us come out of it unscathed.
Mm-mm.
Yeah. And
It
Randall
has
wrote
more
to
to
us,
do with the frequency.
right. And Randall wrote to us about being scathed on a like a Amazonian rainforest gale, right? I mean, it felt like almost like apocalypse and global warming, all the things, because these trees got wiped out. It's a good one, Randall.
Mhm.
There is something that's happening with this group, like the more you repeat back, I feel like your writing is getting tighter and tighter. Because you are, Randall, Sarah, and Suzanne are the longest term people in this group today, but Elisa, you've been here a lot too. And I mean, look what happened.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so Gretchen, you're up.
Yeah, I'm thrilled to be following those.
Just go for it. No excuses or anything. What happened, happened,
Okay.
and keep coming
Yep.
back if you can.
Nature is our one true constant. It envelops our existence, allows us to thrive and grow through the ritual of planting, harvesting, and eating. It sustains us through oxygen and carbon dioxide. Without it, humans cannot survive. But under the layer of the autumn leaves, the crested wave lapping at the sand, the wave lapping at the farthest reaches of the sand, there is a rhythm. If we allow ourselves to tune in, we can not only feel the rhythm, it can quiet our mind, ease our soul, and if we stay still long enough, we can give back. I have planted that tree in the backyard that my kids swung from when they were little, that offered shade to a warm August picnic. I have saved its branches from the weight of the October snow. It has been there every day as a member of the family. It means something, but more than that, it is part of the rhythm. It is my connection when I am overwhelmed and lost.
Nice.
Non-fiction.
Nice.
Very nice.
Yeah. And so you opened up with a thought process happening, and just as you moved into rhythm, what you had happening at rhythm is what all these other people have already learned how to shortcut. So, what you had at the beginning is important and you can have it there, but also you started moving right into the poetry of what writing is. Like, I think you should feel really good about where you went with that, because it did the things, didn't it, everybody? I'm sorry, I jumped in. What do you all think?
Yes.
I thought the key word at the beginning was when you allowed yourself.
Mhm.
I think that's something we're all talking about here is to allow ourselves, whether it's to allow ourselves to write, or allow ourselves to go through our grief, or allow ourselves to have a shitty day, or allow us to be selfish, or allow us to whatever it is we're doing with our personal life. And I thought that word, that one word really pulled the piece together, because it allowed you to then go get the tree, save the tree, blah, blah, blah. But it was allowing yourself, not allowing through other people.
Mhm.
Nice.
I like the style, like when you first started, I thought it was going to be going a certain way, and then you took like this dramatic shift and made it like from theoretical to personal. And then like towards the end, like after the part where you talked about getting snow off of it,
Mhm.
you mentioned that it's a tree again, and I think you could actually not like keep it a little bit more vague, and
Oh, okay.
that will be more powerful because it'll leave some of the responsibility on the reader, and that can be useful and keep them hooked in there.
Cool.
Yeah, I really like the style change through it with how it still was like essay. Then you started getting to the descriptive language, like talking about like how like the water lapping, but then
Mhm.
how you even connected that to like you funneled it down from like this big thing to like this thing of how it like very personally affects you and how like nature is your family and how like the tree is your family. So I really like that. You did a great job.
Thank you. That's a different way to see it. I hadn't thought about that. That's cool.
I like the way that you feel the rhythm, stay still, and then that it's like a member of the family.
Mhm.
I like those.
Thank you.
The line that I picked out was, without it, humans cannot survive. And that was kind of one of the transition points for me of that. We kind of lose sight of the fact that we're not separate from nature. We are nature. And
Mhm.
I think that was like a really good anchoring point to show, like, the seeing the tree as, part of what you are, not something that's separate from.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I
and
agree.
Randall, it's like you set me up because the last thing I wanted to say was that last line about giving back. So we can't survive without nature, but we also do contribute to nature, and it's all one system. So yeah, nice.
Mhm. Cool. Thank you, guys.
Patricia.
You know, I take time to come up with metaphors. I don't do it in 6 minutes.
Yeah.
So I feel like everybody else does all the metaphors, but
I promise
I'm
you,
not
if you
there.
keep coming, they'll come faster. I mean,
Okay.
if you think, I think the longest person who's been coming is Sarah. And Sarah, now you write in metaphors, but did you a year ago?
No, I honestly don't think I do even now. It doesn't feel like it.
Right,
Huh?
because it comes naturally to, I was gonna say, your whole piece was an extended metaphor, but
Mhm.
but it just becomes a part of you, Patricia. So no need to make excuses or anything. We just go through our
Okay.
process and we get better.
Okay. Sounds good. A dead tree at Northampton Park, bark missing, whitish. For me, it was a piece of art. Every day I passed the tree, I experienced its unique beauty. It stood proud for years for whoever wanted to gaze upon it. But sadly, this year they cut it down. Death isn't always ugly. It could have stayed, but many despise the beauty in death. It reminds me of my niece's picture of her stillborn child, her only picture. She wanted to include it in an anniversary collection for my parents, and some in the family thought it didn't belong. They created 2 videos so each could choose. The rejection broke my niece's heart.
Wow.
Oh no, you're not writing in metaphors. No. Oh my gosh, Patricia. Oh my gosh, that was incredible. Incredible. Well, I'll let people speak, but yeah.
Yeah, that took a turn. Didn't see that coming at all, which I think is what imbues the power in it. Because then you're left with this challenge of your niece having to deal with such an incredible loss, and loss is part of life, and each one hits us differently. And especially when you lose a child, you want to talk about that child. That child is never forgotten. It doesn't get taken away like a tree does. It's always there.
I think you don't need that last sentence about her heartbreak, because I think it's more heartbreaking if you don't spell it out that she was heartbroken.
Good point.
because then we're like, that leaves us much more feeling with like, oh, like, there's always the issue of what do you do with the dead town trees? Do you leave them there to look at them, or do you cart them away? And are they really dead? Like there's all, so there's the dead town tree, and then there's the dead baby. And if you don't spell it out, then it leaves us the same feeling of what do we do with this? Do we keep the dead tree? Do we keep the picture of the baby, or do we take away, or the both of them? So I think without that last sentence, it's a lot more powerful because it strengthens the comparison.
That's-
I find that people have very strong opinions about death, whether they have experienced it relationally or not. But making it like compared to a tree that everybody sees, it kind of makes it so that everybody can identify with some level of it.
Mhm.
And whether they see it as natural progression of something else, or if they see it as a final, they're gone, it's gone from every memory or every thought or whatever. I don't, I think you could do a lot with it.
Mhm.
It
Yeah.
come-
Oh,
go ahead. No, go ahead.
Oh man. I think it was really beautiful, especially when you were talking about how like death can be pretty, and like how you had like that. I had like this image of like this tree trunk that's been dead, but then things start like sprouting life from it. And then how you like pivoted towards like the family, and then like the only picture, and it's just so heartbreaking. But then you find the beauty, like trying to be like, well, at least there's a picture, but then like the juxtaposition of like the family being like, no, death isn't beautiful, and like they're not apart. It was just so good. I really liked it.
Kind of touching on what Sarah said too about, I think you're touching at the edges of kind of the intangible, the things that humans can feel, but we can't we can't really elaborate on or describe in an exact way, and words kind of fail, and even like scientific measurement fails, because we don't know. But
Mhm.
when you portray the tree, as you point out things about it that are beautiful, you point out things about the tragedy of the fact that it was cut down after standing proud, and then that line that you said about death isn't always ugly, it kind of it symbolizes death without trying to philosophize on it or tell us anything about it. It is just like death just is. And we're all kind of left to make our own interpretations. I thought that was incredibly powerful.
Yeah, and like Randall seems to be teeing me up, the thing I wanted to say was that with the tree, you invited us to take on like the townspeople's perspective. Everybody has an opinion what you do with a tree like that. One person wants the birds to be able to nest in the dead trunk, and other people want it taken down because it's ugly. And what happens to the wood when it gets taken down? And like, so we're like right there, we innocent little readers are right there on this town tree argument. And you flip it into this beautiful moment with this niece who has a strong opinion about the only photo she has of this stillborn baby. And we know because of the way it's written that it's beautiful. And we know what the narrator thinks about whether or not it should have been included in the video. And so we've been taken from townsfolk to now part of this family. And was our opinion about what happens with the dead town tree the same or different as what happens to this stillborn baby? And it was really powerful. And I don't know how you did that in 6 minutes, because I think you encouraged us to side with the narrator in that, of course, she should be part of this important video. This niece's child should be. And we didn't feel that way about the tree. We were being allowed to have our own opinion. And I love the way that this then asks us to kind of think about the way we approach everything. There's always another way to look at something.
Mhm.
My
Mm.
heart's broken. I'm not a crier, but I am so sad about this one, and thank you for making me sad.
I understand that.
Yeah, yeah, it's really sad. Okay, so I have another thing for us to read. We're taking a long time, and I just want to point out to everybody that if you have to go, anytime we go past 10:30, it's never an offense to just drop off the call if you need to go. I don't want to take more time than I had said that I would. But I found this piece, and I had to really dig to find a piece with a long title, and I wish I could find all the ones I have read before because I've read so many of them. But I chose this one. The Citron Review is a big publication. If you can get in there, you've done well. And this has a long title, and I thought what we'd do is read through this, kind of walk through the prompt a little bit, and then I want to take a moment for you to write down some titles, and then we'll go into the writing session, because the writing session won't work unless you have some options. So I'm just going to read it in a matter of time. You told me I ruined Six Flags for you, and honestly, I hope I did. I've never had a strong stomach, even as a child, though I was almost always too stubborn to admit it. So when I told you I felt sick after leaving the Six Flags bathroom, it was out of utter defeat. I'm not sure how many times I apologized about it, but you left me sitting alone outside of the subway in an amusement park I had never been to, desperately trying to level my stomach since you were too mad to talk, regardless. I wish it was that quiet when we rode home. It would have been a welcome change. So this title does something, and the title, of course, is meant to be read before you read a piece. How does this title set us up to read this piece?
Resentful.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. And honestly, I hope I did. How is that voice different than the voice inside this short piece?
It's almost like they had time to think about it, and as much as they wanted to apologize for what happened, by the end of it, they're thinking this is biological. It wasn't a choice to ruin your day. And so, if I did, so be it, because you didn't treat me respectfully.
Yeah. What do we know about this relationship based on the title and what happens?
Initially, I
Person's
thought
like
it was
sick of hearing the other person complain or be upset with him.
Yeah, this isn't the first time this has happened, right? What were you going to say, Gretchen? Something similar?
Well, I mean, at first I was thinking it was two family members, like a brother and sister or something like that. But now I'm thinking it's perhaps more of a couple in a relationship.
A couple are like seriously close friends or something, but someone who wouldn't have known that the person had a weak stomach as a child, right? Yeah, so this is a case where a big long title is almost a reversal for what happens in the piece, and makes a really interesting opportunity to juxtapose what is happening. Another way to have done this, so like this opens with, I've never had a strong stomach even as a child, though I was almost always too stubborn to admit it. So when I told you, right? But you told me I ruined Six Flags for you, and honestly, I hope I did. You could go from there to, I'm not sure how many times I apologized about it, but you left me sitting alone outside of Subway in an amusement park, right? And that could make it part of the story. And that's another technique I just really want you kids to keep in mind. So you can have one do like a job, as this one is, or you can actually have a big long title and literally start in mid-sentence or start with the next sentence in your piece. And there's a lot of reasons to do that. It's wonderfully disrupting for readers if you do that. So what I want you to do, okay, oh, I didn't put the prompt, did I? Sorry, hold on. What I want you to do is we'll walk through the prompt. We're going to talk a little bit about some titles, and you're going to write some down, and then we will do the 6 minutes. So write a story in which the title is long. maybe even longer than the story, you could consider putting down collage fragments. Write a long title and a story shorter than it, but also consider doing it again in the future. So like I'm recognizing how hard this is to do in 6 minutes, but I'm trying to set you up for something you can continue doing after this exercise. So see if it makes a story written in titles and fragments at the end of our 6 minutes. So what your topic can be, you can either revisit your nature topic and like pull a favorite sentence out of there and start a piece using that sentence as the title. You could start something new, like look for inspiration around you. Is there a TV show that you watched last night? Is there something in your room that tells a story? Just try to pull a sentence from one of those and go ahead and try to like pick a sentence from what you wrote or pull a sentence from around you. Try to get 2 different things that are like at least almost sentence length on the page, and then we'll start your. And when you have your 2 things, stare me down. Randall, if you get there, since you can't stare me down, you are more than welcome to throw me something in the chat that says you have enough to start with. You can keep going, but you know, I can't see you. Sarah is staring me down, is that correct? Okay, you don't have to stare me down anymore then.
I'm rereading the prompt too.
Okay. Patricia is looking up anyway. Do you have enough to start writing?
So I just have a title. I just have a title is all. So,
Okay,
so you want a title and then a fragment and then another title and no.
No, I just want you to have a place to start writing. From
Okay.
something you might use as a title is good enough. I just want to be sure that everybody had some options before we got going.
I have a title.
Okay. So Sarah, Patricia, and Elisa have enough to get started. For Randall, you could always unmute and tell me too. I'm just basically waiting for you to get enough to get started, and then I'll start the clock. Suzanne's making faces.
I didn't think the
So-
summer cold would kill me this much.
You didn't think what?
Oh, the summer cold would kill me this much.
Right. Okay, I'm gonna pull up something I wrote real quick and you guys could use. Okay, I'm not trying to ruin things. I was in a class this week. So you could have a title be "Don't Gloat," be demure, don't go for anything, be passive, smile, and for God's sake, smile. Just in case that would send you somewhere. It's got to be way far off from anything you all were doing. So I forgot the end of the line. Here you go. Okay, so if you don't have anything that works for you, you could always start with that. Since it's my words, I've just given them to you. And for God's sake, smile. Can we go, Randall? I see your mute is off. Are you in a place you can start?
Yeah, I'm staring now.
Thank you. I can see it's like a black hole. Suzanne, do you feel like you could start writing?
I'll do my best.
Okay. Okay. I just don't want us to go too far over. So on your marks, get set. Right, please. You have about a minute left. All right, everybody, try to wrap things up. I think Randall was talking, but it was kind of like breaking down a beat rap. How did it go? Was it weird?
Mine
Yeah,
went
very-
crazy.
Same.
Oh, cool. I'm very excited that people went crazy. I do feel like if she's sharing, we should start with Patricia because she went last time. Are you gonna read what you got this time, Patricia?
Well, it won't take long.
Okay, there.
So I didn't do well on this one at all.
We don't
Um,
get to like do this editor judgment thing on ourselves because, well, for
I
one,
know, that's what I love. That's what I love. I do feel safe here.
okay, so let's just hear what you got.
So my title, my cat Sheba thinks she owns me when she puts her paw upon my face at 4 a.m.
I'm not sure you have to write anymore, but go ahead.
My title. Get up. I'm hungry. I don't want yesterday's leftovers. And then all I had was, I don't have anything else to write. And I kept writing that and I did not find anything else to write.
I actually think you could have an amazing flash where that's the title. And then the first sentence would be, and then I got up. Or something like that. I'm jumping on everybody else. Everybody else tell me what you think after this, but all I'll say is with a title like that, you have something to write. You do. And if you didn't get it in the 6 minutes, you still have something ahead of
Mhm.
Well, and every cat owner knows exactly what you're talking about.
Exactly.
Every single one of us. I see one in
I
the
mean, you get to
background.
sleep
I've got
till
one over
4?
here.
Yeah.
it. Mine are just shut out because they destroy my plants. This is the only room I can have plants in. Randall, do you have cats?
I do not for that exact reason.
I had a cat. My daughter kidnapped him and took her up to Wazoo with him. Now she walks him on a leash because she's scared of the coyotes out there.
That's perfect.
And the cat's gonna help.
No, so the cat won't get eaten.
I'm so thankful it's on a leash.
Yep.
Yeah.
She sends me these videos. He doesn't look happy.
Well, I think we got a general consensus that we love that
Yep.
title.
Yes.
Or maybe you have a first line and there's a different title. I mean, but you have something.
Mhm.
Yeah. No, Patricia, as someone who my cat 4 a.m. every morning, and he started meowing, so he also liked it. But no, it was so good. I hope you continue that because like that, like, do I get up? Do I just give in or do I just try to sleep? Except then the one claw is gonna come back or go to the toes. And so I'm excited for the future for you.
Great start. Great start. Who wants to go next?
I'll
Can
go
I
next.
Oh,
I
go
actually
ahead.
go
Ooh.
next.
We
Let me
have
go
like
ahead.
4.
Go ahead. You go.
You sure? Okay. Who knew this could happen to me? It's January, and for 52 years, I have been bundled up from the tips of my toes to the tip of my nose. Are you still cold? My husband asks, disgusted. I look at him. Really? Year 53. I'm on a white chaise lounge, my 2 black cats sunning themselves on the pool deck, deciding if the gecko is worth chasing. Really? My son calls. He's freezing and asks what the temperature is. Do you really want to know? Yes. 84, no clouds. Really? He asks. I'm almost embarrassed, but also gleeful. We hang up. I lean back under the warm sun, having never felt so grateful for my life. How could this happen to a small town girl? This is my reality. Who knew that this could happen to me? But I am so thankful it did. Really.
Aw.
Very sweet.
feel like your title's actually really.
Yeah.
maybe.
What'd you say?
I feel like maybe your title could be just the word really.
Oh,
That's your
I like that better.
That's your refrain in the piece.
Mhm.
Maybe.
Or it could be like, really, really,
There's
really with a
a lot
question
of-
mark, really with a period.
Oh,
a lot of
yeah.
sarcasm in my house.
Mm.
Yeah, but no serious suggestion that the title could be two reallys. Really? Question mark? Really?
Mhm.
Period.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Did anybody else, and I know I have some Washingtonians here, I was like, oh, that sounds awful. Like 84 degrees sounds miserable.
Yeah, that's about 20 degrees too hot.
Yep.
So we've got the weather advisory for this weekend because it's going to be a high of 84, I think today, going up to 89 tomorrow. So we've got a heat advisory going on where I'm in Washington. And, you know, my brothers-in-law are in Atlanta and Boston and New York, and they're all just like dying laughing that 84 would trigger a heat advisory.
Mhm.
It's because it's 84 in May.
Yeah. My husband and I were discussing the AC this morning, and it's just like, really?
I've had my AC on for like a month and a half already.
Wow.
All to say, Gretchen, that was fun to go back to the story because this happens to us because we like each other. It was really fun. I said really is a word in my family and it's not used the same way as yours, but it was fun to inhabit the perspective of somebody who had this shift happen in her life. And what would be fun even more is when you revise it to go back and like say, okay, I've told people that I can't believe this happened to me, right? You've shown us by having it happen. So how can you thread the middle ground and continue with the showing so that you can trust us as readers to understand your gratitude?
Mhm. That would be maybe 12 minutes worth of writing.
Yeah, no. This is my fun part. I put the impossible on you, and then I'm like, here's how you can make it better. And you're like, yeah, I know.
Yeah, this one didn't feel nearly as good as the last one. Like Patricia, I'm going, what am I going to do with this?
Some of them do
So-
this. I feel
Huh?
like my prompt fell a little flat. So so good to know. I might not run it again, except for Sarah's giving me a look. So I can't wait. I feel like we should get the most rowdy ones at the
Mhm.
end.
I think you should.
But I'm just gonna say your background hides your horns.
Ooh.
The grade just dropped.
Poor pony. He's already looks so old. Okay, who wants to go next? Thank you, Gretchen. It was a really good start. And again, the best thing that comes from this is material, not a finished story.
Mhm.
Okay, so I have to leave in 10 minutes max, so I'm gonna go next. Okay, so my title is Alana and you fell asleep together, snoring in unison as I stare up at the ceiling. It happened again, our nightly event of you sleeping and me not, of me lying between you two, you on the bed and her on the floor. You turn over in silence for a few seconds before the train restarts in the bed. She jiggles, chasing a squirrel in her dreams, readjusts and starts running on a parallel track. And I stay in the empty caboose on the middle track, staring at the ceiling, wide awake.
I love it. That's hysterical
Wonderful.
and so
humor.
relatable.
Yeah.
Mhm.
My 75 pounder can't understand why she can't come in the bed with us.
Oh,
What else, everyone? In the writing.
I really like the train metaphor and like how you were in the caboose, even though you're in the middle. I just really like that metaphor and how you were able to play it. And it was just so funny and so good.
Yeah.
mhm.
It wasn't heavy-handed.
Mm-mm.
Any other
I like
thoughts?
the idea, like the title made you think perhaps it's about adultery. And then it goes into being about an animal. And like, I think so many times, like when the animal bonds with one, then the other feels like they're the third wheel, even
Yeah.
though they're the spouse. So capturing that is great.
Yeah, lovely. A couple layers of meaning. Nicely done.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
thought,
thought about that. I totally was thinking that.
yeah, and I think the implication of adultery, which we all know doesn't fit into Elisa's life, that implication, we were trusting because we were in this environment. But if you just threw that into being read somewhere, people would be like, you know, and then they find out that it's your pet.
Yep. My angel who's now lying in the sun and won't move for 12 hours.
Yes.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Randall, do you have anything to add?
I thought that was fantastic. The caboose thing, like I think Suzanne was the one who pointed out. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah. The caboose was my favorite surprise in it.
Thank you.
Great. Well, we'll know what happens if you just disappear off our screens because we know you have to go.
Yep. I'm gonna
Okay.
figure it out. But my
Great.
son finally agreed to walk with me, so,
Nice.
know. Yep.
So we have Suzanne, Randall, and Sarah, right? Who wants to go next?
Can I go?
Yes.
Because it's classic me. I almost went back home saying happy April Fool's Day. That's the title. But instead I kept going, the destination being a runaway shelter aptly named Briar Patch. A troublesome or difficult experience defines why I was running away from the generational demons cruelly deforming every day. It was no joke. I could barely stand as I ugly cried, being held up by Darcy's arms that were stronger than my legs. I stayed the night there at Briar Patch until April 2nd. I had to keep going away and away and away again, because even at that age when innocence had been exercised, I wasn't going to be the fool.
Okay. Thoughts?
Dang, Sarah. I really liked how you tied in your title, like the April Fool's joke. You think it's going to be a joke, and then like, but I'm not going to be the fool. And like how you said, like Darcy's hands like held me up even though my legs couldn't. There's another spot where I didn't write down, but I also really liked it, and it was like right after that. But I will message you back later and be like, dang, that was really good.
Yeah, some of you talk in Slack after this, don't you?
Yeah.
There's a lot to unpack in that one. There's a lot of things, you know, because it leaves the question why, and the fact that it's not answered is fine. Because it leaves the reader the opportunity to think what could be going on in this person's life that she responds that way.
Yeah, you said something about generational what? What was the word you used?
Demons.
Yeah. So that's our clue, right, Gretchen?
Mhm,
That she's running away from generational demons, but we don't know what they are.
mhm.
Well, I mean, a lot of us in this group do know what they are, but you are our canary in the coal mine for this story because you haven't heard her story before. So, yeah. Yeah, so Sarah, that's a great indicator coming from Gretchen that you achieved what you wanted to achieve because she understood what you're up to, and we all have context. So, yeah. Randall, do you want to add anything?
I liked how you had generational demons, but then you also had innocence exercised. Like the demons were still there, but the innocence was gone. And I like the way that you repeated away. I think if you had just written away once, it wouldn't have been nearly as powerful as it was because the repetition kind of creates that sense. It helps relate that sense of exhaustion. Like, when is this going to stop?
Mhm.
I liked the name of the place. I don't know if it's the real name, but it's something full of briars, because I don't know why, but I don't know how to pronounce this author's name. Sean McGuire, I think it is. He writes a lot of sci-fi with fairy and fae and whatever, and one of his series is about them all living in the briars or something like that. I haven't read it in like 20 years, but it like jiggled into my brain. And so the connotation of like this rescue place being, named after briars. And I actually don't know what they look like, but it makes me feel like of a bush with like needles sticking out of it, and I might be 1000% in the wrong direction. But that's like the visual I have in my brain. So that being the name of a shelter, being the name of running away, it like clicked all together.
Quick question, Sarah, are you kind of leaning into the oh, I forget, the folk tale about don't throw me in the briar patch? Is that part of? Okay. Tar baby.
No, it was literally named Briar Patch, so I just Googled what Briar Patch meant, and it's a troublesome or difficult situation or experience. So I was like,
Yeah, which emerges from, it's Tar Baby and who are those? You all know what I'm talking about,
Yeah, I can't remember the character names, but I know what you're talking about.
like Tar Baby and the rabbit or something. And
Was
they're
it Brer,
saying,
Brer Rabbit, I think, something like
yeah,
that.
Briar Rabbit, probably.
Yeah.
No, Brer though, I think, BRER. And it has to do with the character sets itself up to be able to easily be thrown in the briar patch because they're protected and it will save their lives from the one that can't join them in the briar patch. So there's a really powerful like folklore myth story that goes underneath that, Sarah, that I think is just, it was already powerful, and now you're pushing this towards a big metaphor again, because if we're familiar with that story, there's so much more going on. Like running to a runaway shelter doesn't seem great, but at least they're safe from the worst thing inside there, which is, I think, how it got named, which is really sophisticated.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's the book. I just Googled it, full of briars.
I'll bet you that one's, having a relationship with what I'm talking about as well. I'll find the thing and send it to you, Sarah.
Yeah.
I'll find the folk story. It was in a book I read as a kid, because my house was full of strange books. Patricia, did you have anything you wanted to add for Sarah? I just don't want to leave you out. It's okay if you don't.
Oh, no, not right now.
Okay, great. Okay, so wow, Sarah, thank you. Oh, bye, Elisa.
Sorry, I'm sure your stuff is great. Put it in the Slack group so I can read it.
is it Brer Rabbit in the Briar Patch?
Yeah, that's it.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so we have Randall and Suzanne. Which of you two would like to go?
Suzanne, you can go first. I have a reputation to uphold.
Alright. Okay. So the title is I wish you didn't say sorry if you didn't mean it, but you did. Just say something. The room is stuffy and it wasn't from the window being closed. I sat on the bed, you at the office chair. The dog tried to body slam me, emitting lone groans and wiggling around. The cat perched on the desk, offended the dog was on my lap. We sat, waiting for the other to start or finish, but the animals knew and they kept vying for attention.
Ooh,
Can you tell me the title again?
I wish you didn't say sorry if you didn't mean it, but you did.
which is a lovely play on, did you mean you were sorry, or you did say you were sorry, but you didn't mean it? Which one is it, right? Though I think we can glean a meaning from the story. So thoughts, people? See what happens when you write something pretty profound. Nobody has anything to say. Okay, so I'm going to chat a little bit while you all are forming up your thoughts. So what I wanted to say was so great. I thought this was such a wonderful showing instead of telling piece, where you tell us what the title, which is awesome, but when you get in the piece, all that happens is the animals are showing us how miserable the person is and how they're vying for attention, which is what they do when there's a big crisis going on. So I would have read that title as if he said he was sorry, or well, the other person said he was sorry, whatever. I'm going to gender him a boy. That he said he was sorry, but he didn't mean it. And that's the way I would read it based on how the animals acted. But you also would have an interesting chance to write like if you wanted to play with the title instead of what really happened in life or whatever, you could have a chance to have another paragraph to find out that actually what happened was he did mean sorry. And that would be interesting to have the animal's behavior change or something. I don't know. I mean, I'm just playing in my head with it while people are thinking. So what other thoughts do you have?
For me, that's one that I almost feel like the reader needs to read themselves. Because I think there's something visual with the words in the story. For me, it would be easier to sort of put it all together, because I feel like listening to it, I know there's a lot in it, but I want to, it's like I need to touch it myself to see it, to see where it goes. Which is a good thing, because you're writing. It makes me want to read it, because it's like, wait a minute, there's way more under the hood than I can see just by listening.
Yeah, and I'm wondering, I might be reading way too much into this, but it felt like also a metaphor to me, because like the animals themselves like try to one up each other, and they don't care about saying they're sorry. They want to be front and center. And
Mhm.
so obviously it's also in the relationship between people, but I think like having them kind of parallel but not parallel. But am I reading too much into it? Because I feel kind of like I am, but I see it.
That's funny because the animals do try to one up each other, like the dog and the cat. And so I think it'd be very funny to see if I like analyze their personalities more. That's what's happening.
Take the Myers-Briggs after
Yeah.
class.
Also, I would say that it's hard to say somebody read too deeply into it. It's more interesting to say, I'm going to think about that, because you never know what's subconsciously going on in your own writing. And somebody who was saying this, oh, one of my clients, which was a compliment. One of my clients, we're working on, he's writing a novel and I'm coaching him as he writes. And he said, you know, you always find things in here that I didn't even realize were there, but they're there. And I mean, that's what we do as readers, right? You know, is seek a meaning that sometimes even as writers, we're not consciously putting on the page. Did you want to add anything, Randall? Or do you want to uphold your reputation?
No, I think that was really good. At first when you're reading it, you're thinking you're just reading this innocent exchange between animals, and then you start to realize, oh, there's more here. I liked it. I thought that was very good. It was very subtle.
Thank you.
Agreed. Anyone else have anything before we let Randall bring up the caboose? Oh, she's not even here for my joke. Okay, Randall, we're ready.
All right. So my title is, I've been the expert witness in many different legal proceedings, but we still can't come to a uniform and peaceful consensus of the pronouncement of the word Appalachia. Warning, the following story will make more sense with a mouthful of cornbread. The testimony of youngins and your mama and them has proven tedious, but the word remains a contentious issue. The Latchins are hanging in there like a hare in a biscuit, while the Latians are hopping like a one-legged man in an ass-kicking competition. Everyone's madder than hell, but as sure as God's got sandals, the winner will be strutting like a rooster in socks. Meanwhile, the lawyers are all as nervous as a long-tailed cat in a room full of rocking chairs. We'll get the verdict about supper time tomorrow. Y'all come back now, you hear?
Wow.
Randall, that was so good.
You capture the right words very well, like
Oh my gosh, yes.
the regional dialect or whatever.
That was kind of what I started with, was just, I'm going to see how many colloquialisms I can push into one piece.
That's
You did
awesome.
well.
I just want to say, Randall, if you do not like return and polish that up and send it out, I will find you and make you send it out. That is so, I think you should send it to the Citron Review, because it's a Georgia publication. I really do. I really do. I don't know.
What was the name of the place you just said?
Oh, it's the one that that we just took the thing from, the Citron Review.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. No, you're in Slack, right, Randall?
Yes.
I'll send you the thing on a private message.
Okay.
Everybody talk, but oh my gosh, I'm crying still.
Well, the thing of it is that so many times when writing, you're trying to give a meaning or something like that. But when somebody flips it on its side and adds humor to it, and you still find the meaning underneath, that's the best.
Yeah,
It really is. That's a talent in my book. Anybody can make people feel an emotion, but to make somebody laugh and still find the meaning, that to me is a gift.
agreed.
I loved how the title, it started off so serious and I'm like, oh, is he getting into some crime stuff? And then you like ended it with like the Appalachian versus oh no. Appalachia. But then like with the cornbread, like that got me, especially because it's like such like a dinner time like fight that you're just like trying to rile the other person up type of thing. And just like the whole it was just so good.
What else? What's the problem? Okay, so I do a bunch of audio listening, as everybody here, well, now Gretchen knows too. I mostly read books by audio now because I spend all my days grading and coaching and reading physical things. What would be a potential problem Randall's gonna have putting this piece out in writing?
Well,
People
I think when
say they're too different. Oh, go for it. Sorry.
his dialect plays right into it. And I think, when you read, you're reading in your own voice. When you have someone read it in a voice that feels authentic to the piece itself, that brings it to life. It wouldn't sound as funny if I said it.
Right. And so how is Randall going to make that voice? I mean, we get it, the hair and the biscuit, we're there, right? But how does Randall make sure that like even the distinction in the title, he wouldn't have to, but when he's going the Latin versus the Latin in his actual writing, how are you going to show that, Randall?
Well, the way I did it on the paper was I actually wrote the word latch -UNS and then LAYSH -UNS.
Perfect.
Perfect.
Yeah, and if you can do, like, I really think, Mark Twain style, you're going to want to have dialect in there with the little apostrophes and, the things that make it truly Southern speech. Dropping off letters, twinging a little bit for us. I didn't say twinging, closed captioning. I said twanging. There we go. Twinging's very different. Okay, so any more thoughts? My day's better for having laughed my tail end off. Do y'all have any questions about classes, about anything we're doing?
Our first draft is due tomorrow.
Oh, right. You must be in 529 then.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I want to make sure I say this is one of my favorite moments in 529. I've been teaching 529 for I think close to 2 years now, and when I get to see which story you chose and where you're going with it, it's the best.
So I read one of your announcements to all of us, and it said 2,500 word limit, and I thought, so I went over to mine. I'm at 2,839, and I'm not done. So there's a lot that's going to get cut.
Sarah, Suzanne, Randall, could you please say what I'm about to say?
Have fun with that.
Ooh, what do I say about having a cut? Sarah, I'm never so evilly flippant as that.
She's way nicer than I am.
Kill your darlings, is that what it is?
No, it's nicer than that.
No, you when you revise, you like cut in half and then cut that in half, and then like you find the pieces, like segments, words, whatever, that are most defining of what you are trying to accomplish, and then you go in that direction. It makes it more powerful.
Well, that's not what I was going to say exactly.
Oh.
That's the technique you definitely should try. Suzanne's got something though, I can tell.
There's things that you can cut out that like don't drive the story forward, or they don't add anything, and those are things that I would consider cutting out, especially like describing how someone said something. You could show it in a different way, and that cut a lot out of my word count.
So here's a question, because the whole writing thing is new to me, and I've heard show, don't tell. What are some of the techniques for showing? I mean, I get the basics, but how do you get beyond the telling something. You know, I understand telling is a lot of the exposition stuff, but I feel like there's still a part of showing that I'm missing. Does
Like
that make
describe
sense?
it, like her face was red as she stomped through the snow instead of saying it's cold outside.
Right. Okay.
Make it like use your sensories
Mhm.
versus telling.
Telling.
So
Yeah.
say a character, let's make it a male character because it's easy for me. Say a character is angry and he just said some dialogue, we just closed it, and our impulse would be, he said angrily. How would you do it instead? Anyone?
He could slam a door, he could clench his jaw or squeeze his
Mhm.
fist.
Mhm.
Yeah, so an action beat is a really easy way to do some showing without having to go into a long description. You can just be like, you know, that's what I said. His jaw muscles clenched. And that's only one more word than say, no, it's the same. That's the same amount of words as he said angrily, right?
Mhm. Yeah, but it says something completely different.
Or like with what Dr. Max just said, like his jaws and his muscles or muscles in his jaw just clenched. Like you could say his jaw clenched, like we already know it's the muscles.
Mhm.
So like, because I'll say
Sure.
like she
I'm
smelled with her
terrible on
nose.
my
Like
own.
of course she smelled with her nose. What else she didn't smell with?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
briefly to repeat what Sarah said, one technique that works really great is to look at your word count when you're done and then challenge yourself to cut that in half. Walk away from it for, at least an hour, if not a day.
Cry if you have to.
You don't have time right now. And cut it in half again, and then take a look at what's there. Like you just have to be ruthless and get it down to 25% of what you have now. Then look
Mhm.
at what you have now, what you cut in half to, and what got to 25%, and say, what of 50% am I going to add back in and stay within the word count? And what you'll find is when you ruthlessly have to cut it in half a couple of times, you'll discover what matters.
Okay, that works. I'm not worried about it. I'm up to the challenge, and I know I added stuff to sort of get the story in my head, so I know a bunch of it's going to come out. But what's sitting in the back of my head are some of the peer review comments, which are all great. So I'm trying to figure out how to meet those needs with what I have written.
If you need to. Also decide which of those needs meet your needs for what you're trying to do with the story.
Okay.
And then the last thing I'll say, and this is what I thought Suzanne and Sarah were going to say when I said, what am I going to say? Having to cut back your writing always makes it better. It'll make it more dense. It'll make it more rich, and it always makes it better. That was that simple
said that.
answer, but you gave better answers instead.
You know what I'm doing this afternoon?
Yeah, I just want you to know that being forced to take the fluff out to meet a word count. I had one student get actually super angry with me about this and even put it in like my one of those end of the term things, my feedback stuff.
Review.
Yeah, she was really angry with me. She's like, and don't tell me that word writing gets better if it's cut down. That's not true. And I was like, okay, but it does. So it's true in my world. It's true in most people's world. I acknowledge that some people don't believe in it, and I disagree with them.
Yeah, Dr. Max is right. Less is more, or less.
Yes.
Yep.
Less is more. Yeah. Well, you all hung in here. I do set aside 2 hours to do this, and I'm sorry it was a full 2 hours today, but man, it was a great day.
Thank
I
you
never-
for having
never-
me.
I never walk away not inspired. That was a double negative. But how do I say that positively? I always walk away inspired.
Always
from these.
inspired.
Thank you, Patricia. Well, y'all have a great weekend. I know that you have a lot to do. All of you are still in school. So, Randall, are you still in school?
Yes, I'm in second to last semester right now.
Okay, good. Well, I know it's crunch time because it's the weekend, and me too, but for different reasons. I wish you luck. I will take some of your luck from me too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Have a
Bye.
great day.
Hey, everyone.
Bye, everybody.